I noticed she was growing quieter, but it never crossed my mind that her silence would lead me to a place where no one remembers her name, and everyone knows mine. We were 3 plates into our usual Friday night ritual. Chinese takeout on the couch, soy sauce packets scattered like confetti, and Notting Hill playing on the screen, though none of us were really watching it. Elspeth had her legs tucked beneath her, chopsticks in one hand, the other resting on the throw pillow between her and Xavier. They were laughing about something he said, something about Julia Roberts and bad British teeth, and it should have been harmless, just friends sharing a moment. But something about the way she leaned into him, the ease in her smile, the way he didn't even glance at me when he said it, it struck me. A flicker, a static charge in an otherwise ordinary night. I pushed the thought aside. That's what you do when you love someone, right? You assume the best. You trust the person who promised to walk through fire with you. Elspeth and I had been married 5 years. Not perfect years, no such thing, but solid ones. We'd built routines like layers of paint, brushing the same strokes until they became second nature. Friday nights were ours. Sunday mornings with French press coffee and the Times. Tuesday nights, she did yoga while I worked late at the firm. I knew where her keys were before she did, and she could finish my sentences before I started them. That kind of marriage. Xavier was a part of that picture too. He'd been my best friend since our freshman dorms at university, the guy who dragged me to philosophy class when I was hungover and talked me out of shaving my head during finals. He was the best man at our wedding. Gave a toast that made Elspeth tear up. Zayden found lightning in a bottle, he said. And he somehow convinced her to marry him. People laughed. I laughed. I believed it. They'd always gotten along. Elspeth and Xavier. That was one of the things I liked. She could hang with my friends, and he could make her laugh. The first time they met, they fell into an easy rhythm, like they were picking up a conversation they hadn't finished yet. I used to think it was sweet. Then we were all family. But over time, their banter started to sound like, well, like theirs. Private jokes I wasn't in on. Elspeth would say, "Remember what happened at the art fair?" And Xavier would grin and say, "How could I forget?" Then silence. Laughter. Me, just smiling, pretending not to notice that I hadn't been at that art fair. Still, I told myself it was nothing. Work had been brutal lately, and I'd been distracted. We hadn't gone on a real vacation in almost a year. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was just seeing shadows in a well-lit room. But that night, while she was laughing at his joke, she reached up, just briefly, to fix her hair behind her ear, and I caught the way his eyes followed the motion. Like a reflex. Like he'd done it before. I didn't say anything. I just sat there with my low mane going cold, watching him laugh, smiling like a man, clinging to a memory of something that might already be gone. Later that night, after Xavier left and Elspeth was brushing her teeth, I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing a takeout soy sauce stain on my jeans. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I trusted her, that I should trust her. 5 years, after all, that had to mean something. But when she came out of the bathroom, she didn't meet my eyes. She just said good night in that low, distracted voice people use when their mind is somewhere else. And when she turned off the lamp and faced away from me, I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time she'd said, "I love you," without me saying it first. Funny how it all starts so quietly, not with a scream, but a whisper. And even funnier how, deep down, part of me already knew. The next time she didn't even look at me when she came home, and for the first time she behaved in a way she had never behaved before. The shift was gradual, like the slow dimming of a room where you don't realize the lights are fading until you're already sitting in the dark. At first, I thought it was just the season. Winter was crawling in, with its short days and long, quiet nights. Elspeth hated the cold. She always said it made her feel caged, like she was just waiting for something better to come along. We used to beat the gloom together, mugs of hot chocolate, rewatching our favorite movies, spontaneous takeout dinners in bed. But this year, something was missing. Conversations between us became clipped, more practical than personal. Do we need more milk? Did you pay the electric bill? Don't forget your mother's birthday dinner. Words stacked on top of each other like receipts in a drawer. Necessary, but devoid of warmth. She started going to bed early, claiming headaches or stress. She'd turn away from me before I could even reach for her. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and she'd be in the guest room, because I didn't want to wake you with my tossing. Then there was the phone. She used to leave it on the counter, screen up, chirping every now and then with group chats or Instagram alerts. I never thought twice about it, but suddenly it was always face down, always locked, notifications silenced. One night, I caught her flinch when I reached for it, not even meaning to pry, just moving it off a magazine. "I've got it," she said quickly, too quickly. Then she smiled that polite, manufactured smile you give a stranger in an elevator. I told myself she was just stressed. She'd been working longer hours at the marketing firm. They were launching some kind of campaign, and she came home drained most nights. Her eyes looked distant even when she was looking right at me. But people go through phases. Relationships do too. That's what I kept telling myself. Then Xavier changed. We've been playing basketball together every Saturday morning for years. Same gym, same routine. But 2 weeks in a row, he bailed, said he was busy with work, with family, with errands. The third week, I stopped asking. When we did talk, his voice had a new tension in it, like someone watching their words in a conversation they used to take for granted. "Hey, man," he said once, looking past me, like something just over my shoulder had his attention. "Things good with you and Elspeth?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just busy. You know how it is." He nodded, but his eyes didn't meet mine. "Yeah," he said. "Busy." It was a small thing, a nothing moment, but I couldn't shake it. A question started forming in the back of my mind, and once it was there, it was impossible to unthink. I started noticing more. Elspeth got new clothes. Nothing extravagant, just subtle things. A new coat, a different perfume, heels I hadn't seen before. She changed her password on the shared laptop, which she never used to bother with. "Security update," she said when I asked. "Everyone at work's doing it." And still, I clung to the story I needed to believe, that she was just tired, just preoccupied, just going through something I didn't understand yet. Then came a night she didn't come home. It was a Thursday. I remember that clearly, because we were supposed to have dinner together. I left the office around 7 o'clock, picked up Thai from that place she liked with the handwritten menus and faded photographs on the wall. She didn't answer my texts. By 8:30, I was still sitting alone at the table, the food going cold, the candles burning low. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I paced the living room, checked my phone, opened and closed the fridge 3 times like that would somehow bring her home. Midnight came and went. I stared at the front door like it was going to answer my questions. I told myself maybe she was stuck in a meeting. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she needed air. When the lock finally clicked, it was just after 2 a.m. Elspeth stepped in like someone entering a stranger's home, cautious, slow. She looked startled to see me still awake. "You're up," she said, blinking like she needed a moment to remember who I was. "Yeah," I said, standing. "Where were you?" She dropped her purse on the chair, taking off her coat too quickly, too carelessly. Her hair was tousled, like she'd rushed to fix it. Her blouse was slightly wrinkled, and there was something else, faint but unmistakable, the scent of cologne. "Not mine. Work ran late," she said. Her voice was flat, tired. "Until 2 in the morning?" I asked gently, not accusing, just asking. "Yeah," she said, rubbing her temples. "We had a client emergency. We had to pull a whole strategy shift for a campaign launch." Her lips were swollen. Her mascara slightly smudged, like it had been wiped off hastily. She moved past me into the bedroom, and I just stood there, staring at the place where she'd been, heart thudding in the hollow of my chest. I didn't follow her. I didn't yell. I didn't interrogate. I just stood there, anchored by silence. Because deep down, I already knew. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, watching the digital clock glow in the dark like a slow-burning fuse. I kept waiting for something, a confession, an explanation, a dream to wake up from. The next morning, She made coffee like nothing happened, wore a cardigan, kissed me on the cheek on her way out the door. I called in sick, sat at the kitchen table staring at her empty mug. For the next few days, I told myself maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe there was a real client emergency. Maybe the cologne was from a coworker's hug or the back seat of an Uber. Maybe I was going crazy. But the distance grew. The air between us was heavier now, like we were walking through fog that neither of us wanted to acknowledge. And Xavier, he stopped texting entirely. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because once you ask the question, you can't take it back. And part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I married, needed just one more night of pretending we were okay. But pretending only gets you so far. And the truth I was beginning to realize doesn't stay buried. It just waits for the right moment to rise. There's a quiet kind of madness that creeps in when you start living with unanswered questions. It doesn't scream. It whispers. Slowly. Constantly. You eat dinner, and it's there, sitting across the table. You go to sleep, and it lies beside you. You wake up, and it greets you before the sun does. For weeks, that's how I lived. I'd watch Elspeth move through the house like a ghost in familiar skin, polite, distant, occupied. She spoke in vague answers. She smiled less. She stayed late at work more and more. And I kept waiting for something to shift, for the lie to crack, for her to come to me with a look of guilt, or maybe even relief, and just tell me the truth. But she never did. So I started telling myself that maybe this was just the slow evolution of a long marriage, that maybe love, after a while, wasn't supposed to feel urgent anymore. Maybe it just turned into something practical, quiet, unremarkable. That's what I tried to believe. Until one night, I couldn't anymore. It was a Thursday. Funny how it's always Thursdays. She came home late again, said nothing as she slipped off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water like she didn't notice the tension wrapped around the room. I was sitting at the dining table, a legal pad in front of me, empty, but for a single line I'd written over and over again like a schoolboy in detention. What happened to us? She walked past me like I wasn't even there. That was the moment, the exact one. I heard something in me snap, quiet as a twig underfoot. I followed her into the bedroom. She was pulling off her earrings when I said it. Elspeth, we need to talk. She let out a small breath. Not surprised, not angry. More like someone who'd just been told a chore couldn't be delayed any longer. Zayden, it's late, she said, brushing her hair back. Can we not do this right now? I sat on the edge of the bed. My voice cracked just a little. I'm trying to hold on here. But I'm not stupid. I know something's wrong. She turned away, started folding the corner of the blanket like it suddenly needed perfect creases. Elspeth, I said again. Please, just talk to me. She didn't answer. Is there someone else? She stilled, didn't speak, didn't breathe. And in that silence, that god-awful, heavy silence, I felt my chest cave in. Elspeth, I whispered, the name barely escaping my lips. Tell me the truth. She turned slowly, her face pale but composed. Her eyes didn't have the decency to look away. Yes, she said. The word landed like a stone dropped into still water, sending shockwaves through everything I thought was real. I didn't ask who. Not at first. I just sat there, numb, as if my brain had detached from my body and was floating somewhere above the room, watching this scene play out like bad theater. How long? I asked. She hesitated. A year, she said finally. A year. 365 days of dinners, errands, weekend plans, and shared beds, all with a lie coiled beneath them like a live wire. Who? I asked, though somewhere deep down I already knew. Her eyes met mine. Xavier. I laughed, not because it was funny. It was just the only sound my body seemed capable of making. A short, breathless, stunned laugh that didn't belong to me. Xavier, I repeated, almost testing the word on my tongue. My best friend. I didn't plan for it to happen, she said. They never do, I replied quietly. I wasn't looking for anything, but it just grew. We were spending time together, and you were always working late and I don't know. It felt easy. He understood me. Easy, I said. So you picked easy. I stood up because sitting there felt like surrender. My chest burned. My hands were shaking. You could have told me, I said. A year ago. 6 months ago. Yesterday. I didn't want to hurt you. That part nearly broke me. The irony of it. The audacity. You didn't want to hurt me? I said, laughing again, louder this time. You've been lying to me for a year, Elspeth. You've been climbing into my bed after being in his arms and telling yourself you're protecting me. She didn't respond. There was one more truth left to fall. I felt it coming before I asked, "Are you still seeing him?" She nodded. "We're together now." A hollow ache spread through me. I gripped the back of the chair to keep from stumbling. "And there's something else," she added, almost gently, like she was offering a final mercy. I didn't want to know. I already did. "I'm pregnant," she said. "It's his." The air left my lungs all at once, like a sudden blow to the ribs. I didn't speak. I didn't move. "We're moving in together," she continued, quieter now. "He's leaving the city firm. We found a place across the bridge." I nodded slowly. "Get out," I said. She blinked. "Zayden, get out," I repeated. "Now." She stared at me for a long time. Then, with a calm that felt like betrayal all over again, she gathered her bag, walked to the closet, pulled out a small overnight case that had already been packed. That part hurt the most. She was ready. She planned this. I didn't watch her leave. I just listened to the soft click of the door shutting behind her. Then I sat down, alone in our bedroom, and stared at the wall for hours. Maybe longer. It's a strange thing, realizing the people you loved most were the architects of your undoing. The ones you let closest were the ones who cut deepest. That night, everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, trust, it all unraveled. But somewhere inside the wreckage, a part of me, the part that had been buried under months of silence and confusion, began to stir. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something colder, sharper, and it whispered one word over and over again. Enough. Grief doesn't always show up with tears. Sometimes it arrives as silence. Days where you barely speak, nights where you stare at the ceiling until the sun reminds you it's morning again. That's where I was, somewhere between disbelief and something darker. After Elspeth left, the house felt cavernous. Our bed looked bigger. The kitchen echoed. I'd go through the motions, making coffee, shaving, reading the news, like a man in a play about a life that wasn't his anymore. People at work asked if I was okay. I smiled and said I was just tired. That was true, at least. The worst part? I still missed her. Not her as she was now. Not the woman who left with a packed bag and someone else's child, but the version of her I'd built in my head. The woman who used to fall asleep on my chest during movies. The one who once left notes in my briefcase, even when we were fighting. I missed a ghost. And then came Isolde. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. Not since Xavier broke things off with her, supposedly because they weren't aligned anymore. At the time, I took his side. Defended him, even. Told her relationships were complicated. So when I saw her sitting on the bench outside my building, legs crossed, sunglasses hiding her eyes, I almost walked past without recognizing her. "Zayden," she said, standing. "We need to talk." I hadn't heard my name spoken with that kind of certainty in weeks. I nodded and followed her to a nearby cafe. She didn't ask how I was. She already knew. "I found out about the baby," she said once we sat down. "About Elspeth." I nodded. "So it's public now." She gave a small, humorless laugh. Xavier always liked theatrics. I just didn't think he'd write himself into this particular tragedy. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us staring at our untouched drinks. Then she leaned in, voice low, deliberate. "I think we should destroy them." I looked at her, unsure if I'd heard correctly. She held my gaze. "You and I, we were collateral damage in someone else's selfishness. I don't believe in sitting quietly while people walk all over you." "Isolde," I began, but she cut me off. "Xavier's business is struggling. Badly. I know because I used to help with his books. He's over-leveraged, trying to expand too quickly, and desperate to hold onto his investors. If someone nudged them in the right direction, they'd leave. And without them, he falls. I didn't say anything. I know you, Zayden, she continued. You're not the kind of man who burns bridges. But maybe this isn't about bridges anymore. Maybe it's about not letting them build their happy ending on top of the wreckage they left us in. She reached in her bag and slid a thin folder across the table. Think about it, she said. You don't owe them anything. Then she stood and left. I sat there for a long time, staring at the folder. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But it wasn't grief that kept me up this time. It was clarity. I kept thinking of Elspeth's calm face when she told me she was pregnant. Of Xavier's hollow silence. The man who used to finish my sentences, now avoiding my calls entirely. I remembered the toast he gave at my wedding, the night we hugged and promised to always be brothers. All of it a lie. So the next morning, I opened the folder. Isolde had done her homework. She'd mapped out Xavier's financial structure, the unstable partnerships, the way he'd been floating on reputation more than results. The man was walking a tightrope, and one well-placed gust could send him toppling. It didn't happen overnight. I went back to work, but not my old firm. I took a position with a direct competitor of Xavier's company, a smaller outfit, leaner, sharper, eager to punch above its weight. I brought connections with me. A few discreet calls here, a few whispered suggestions there. Investors are cautious creatures. It doesn't take much to spook them. All they need is a reason to doubt, and I gave them several. Meanwhile, Elspeth and Xavier played house. I saw them once at a grocery store. He had his hand on the small of her back. She was holding a tiny pair of baby shoes. They didn't see me. I stood by the frozen peas, watching them pick organic yogurt like they hadn't set fire to someone else's life. That image stayed with me. So I worked harder. Isolde and I met regularly. In restaurants, in her office, sometimes over drinks. We weren't friends exactly, but there was an understanding between us, a quiet alliance. She was sharp, focused, and more ruthless than I ever could have been on my own. She smiled when she talked about Xavier's mounting stress. She grinned when the first investor pulled out. Watch the dominoes, she said. And fall they did. Xavier's company began to unravel. Projects stalled. Rumors swirled. His team thinned. Lawsuits crept in. Not catastrophic, but enough to raise eyebrows and pull funding. I heard from a colleague that he'd started showing up late, snapping at interns, taking personal calls that ended with him rubbing his temples like the world was collapsing. I didn't feel sorry for him. Not yet. Elspeth called once. I let it ring. She texted me a few days later. I heard you've been talking to our investors. Why are you doing this? I didn't respond. She made her choice. I was making mine. But the truth is, I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. Not even close. There was a strange emptiness in watching someone fall, especially when that someone had once stood beside you as your best man. But there was also a strange satisfaction in knowing I wasn't helpless anymore. Revenge, I was learning, didn't come in flames. It came in slow, silent withdrawals, in undone deals, in silence that spoke louder than any argument. And as I stood in my office one late evening, watching the skyline flicker with city lights, I felt something shift inside me. The pain wasn't gone, but now it had a purpose. At this stage, they were still smiling, although their contact list was already beginning to shrink. Funny thing about cleaning up after someone leaves, you discover just how much space they once took up. Physically, emotionally, in the smallest corners of your life. After Elspeth was gone for good, after the door slammed and her threats echoed like weak thunder, I stood in the middle of our house and just looked around. The framed photo on the hallway table? Gone. The silk throw she insisted on for the couch, because it tied the room together, folded and taken. The drawer in the bathroom where she kept her serums and creams, always cluttered, always hers, empty. I remember opening that drawer and staring into the silence of it. It was like discovering absence. And still, for a while, I couldn't sleep in the bed. Too many memories in that mattress. Some sweet, some I wished I could scrub clean. I moved into the guest room, not out of heartbreak, not entirely, but because I needed neutral ground. A space that didn't echo with her laughter or her lies. In the quiet that followed, I began to rebuild. Not in some grand, movie-worthy montage, just in small ways. I learned to enjoy cooking again. I picked up books I'd once set aside. I started running in the mornings, not because I needed to get anywhere, but because it helped me feel my feet on the ground. Every day, the anger dulled. Not disappeared, just stopped leading the conversation. And then, little by little, the scales began to tip. Xavier's company crumbled like a rotting foundation. The lawsuits started rolling in. Whispers at first, then public. Fraud. Misrepresentation. Investors who felt cheated by promises he couldn't keep. The man who once strode into rooms like he owned them now appeared in online articles with words like liquidation and asset freeze attached to his name. Poetic, I suppose. Or maybe just predictable. I heard it all from a distance. Never needed to gloat. Life was doing the heavy lifting. And then came the day, one of those bright, ordinary Saturdays when the world feels casual about handing you closure, that I saw Elspeth again. I'd gone to the mall with Isolde. We weren't officially a couple, but we had a rhythm now, one forged through shared fire, respect, and a surprising sense of calm. She was trying on sunglasses. I was waiting with coffee in hand when Elspeth appeared at the other end of the atrium, holding a toddler in one arm and a shopping bag in the other. She froze. I didn't. She walked toward us like someone approaching a ghost, slow, unsure, but drawn by something she couldn't name. Zayden, she said, with a voice full of caution. Hey, Elspeth. Her eyes flicked to Isolde, who gave her a small, flawless smile and slipped on a pair of designer shades like she'd been waiting for this moment all day. Elspeth hesitated. You look good. I am, I said. She shifted the baby on her hip. The child, presumably Xavier's, looked like he was seconds away from tears. Elspeth's face was tired, older somehow drawn. The gloss she used to carry with such pride had dulled into something a little more desperate. I made a mistake, she said, voice cracking. Leaving you what I did, it was a mistake. I'll let the silence stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. Then I nodded. Yeah, I said. It was. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. I didn't think things would turn out like this. He's not the man I thought he was. He rarely is, I said. I miss what we had. I'll let that sit. I don't, I replied gently, calmly. Her face fell, just slightly. I just thought maybe, if you could forgive me, but I was already shaking my head. I have forgiven you, I said. That's why I'm not angry anymore. But that doesn't mean I want any of it back. She blinked. Once. Twice. I took a sip of my coffee. Take care of yourself, Elspeth. And just like that, she was gone again. Later that week, Xavier showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me. There's a man here. Says he knows you. Xavier. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, send him in. He walked in like someone wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. A little thinner, a little older. The sparkle he used to carry in his eyes had been replaced by a flicker of panic, buried under layers of exhaustion. Zayden, he said. Xavier. He stood there, holding a folder. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't. But I need help. Just advice. Anything. I don't know what to do. I looked at him. The man who once toasted my marriage, who used to laugh at my jokes before looking over my shoulder at my wife. The man who tore down 2 friendships and a marriage for a fantasy. I'm not your lifeline, I said. Not anymore. Zayden, please. I stood. This is not my problem, I said. You made your choices. You live in them now. His shoulders slumped. He tried again, softer. I'm drowning. Then learn to swim, I said. And I opened the door, just like he'd closed so many behind me. He didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. I sat down afterward, staring out at the skyline, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. There was no thunderclap, no cinematic score, just peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally stop chasing closure and start choosing freedom. The house is different now. Same walls, same address, but it breathes easier. I painted the guest room, the one I used to sleep in after she left, turned it into a small music space, picked up the guitar again. I cook for myself. I travel. I even laugh more. Isolde still comes around. Sometimes for dinner. Sometimes for silence. We've built something steady. No illusions. No lies. Just two people who know how bad it can get, and how much better it feels to rise from it. People say betrayal changes you. They're right. But it doesn't have to break you. It didn't break me. It revealed me. And now, as I stand at the edge of this new chapter, I can say without bitterness or regret, it may have rewritten my past, but they don't get to author my future.